So we have this playlist class, which is a domain class, and we have derived this from base view model. This is conceptually wrong, but that's not the only problem here. We've got two more problems. The other problem is the implementation of isFavorite property. So instead of using an automatic property, we have fully implemented this property so we can use iNotify property changed interface. Technically, you should not use this interface in your domain model. Now, this is one of those things that is kind of controversial. Some developers say there's nothing wrong with doing that because iNotify property changed is not part of XAML. It's not part of any presentation frameworks. It's just a generic interface that we use to notify changes in this property to others. But when it comes to design of software, I'm a purist. I believe we should not implement iNotify property change interface in our domain model. Yes, I know this interface is generic, but let me ask you a question. If we were not going to use this playlist class on a page, would we ever implement this interface? No, of course not. So I reject the argument that says iNotify property change interface is generic and it's perfectly fine to implement it in domain classes because we can notify others about changes in the state of a domain object. Where are those others? Those others are always user interface objects. So this is the second problem with this playlist class. The third problem is this color property. Again, this property is for presentation. It should not be part of our domain class. Because domain should only represent the state of the application. It should not know anything about the user interface. That's why we use view models. So I'm going to create a separate class called playlist view model. Let's go back to the solution. Inside view models, add a new class, playlist view model. Now I'm going to go back to this playlist and bring all these properties, copy them right here. And of course, we need to derive this from base view model. Let's bring in the namespace for color. Okay, now we have an actual view model. This is a class purely for presentation purposes. It notifies changes in the property. It has a property about color, and basically anything else that is about presentation, we can put it here. Now back in our playlist class, we are not going to derive this from this base view model. We don't need this weird, fully implemented property. And we should delete this property as well. Now in a real-world application, if you're storing this in a SQLite database, we have attributes on top of these properties. For example, we might have primary key or maximum length or whatnot. So now the role of this class is completely clear. It's part of the domain model. It's got nothing to do with presentation. Let's remove these unused namespaces. Beautiful. Now back in our playlists view model, we're going to replace this playlist with playlist view model. And obviously we need to change the instantiation of this object as well. So playlist view model. There is one more place we need to change, and that is inside this add playlist method. So we create a new playlist view model. We should also change the type of selected playlist. Playlist view model. Let's have the final look. And the argument to this method should also be playlist view model. Now, before going any further, let's run the application and make sure everything works. We got one error in the event handler for selection of an item in the list view. Here we're casting this object as playlist. We should change this to playlist view model. Run the application again. So add a few playlists. Beautiful. Select. One more time. Beautiful. Everything is working properly. But with this new implementation, we have separated different responsibilities. We have our domain classes, we have our view models, but we are not done yet. In the next lecture, I'm going to talk about one of the challenges of working with view models.